Hello and welcome back to the Movie Memo Recaps. Today we are going to recap a 2025 movie titled Sniper: The Last Stand. Please be advised that there will be spoilers ahead. The film begins with a group of special soldiers, known as the Phoenix Team, entering a tunnel to complete a high-risk mission. Their goal is to penetrate the headquarters of an illegal arms trafficking syndicate in Costa Verde. After quickly disarming a guard, they gain access to the CCTV system and manipulate it to their benefit. Meanwhile, Brandon and Zondi, two snipers from the Phoenix Team, wait outside for a signal from their teammates within the tunnel. Moments later, the signal arrives, and Brandon and Zondi carefully choose their targets before acting. As the Phoenix Team emerges from the tunnel, they rush the Mafia stronghold, dispersing to complete their various assignments. They silently eliminate each enemy one by one. However, one of the Mafia members recognizes that their headquarters is under attack. He hurries to alert his employer about the problem. Knowing this, Kovalev, the brutal Mafia leader, fires several rounds into the air, setting off an alarm to warn his men of the invaders. Chaos ensues as Kovalev's men scramble into action, resulting in a brutal gunfight. On the other side of the battlefield, two of Kovalev's snipers try to kill Brandon and Zondi, but Zondi notices their location just in time. He and Brandon work together to neutralize the menace. Kovalev and one of his remaining minions attempt to reposition themselves while fighting back. Desperate, Kovalev phones his ally, the Prime Minister, who is involved in his operations, and asks for quick reinforcements. Unexpectedly, the Prime Minister informs him that backup would arrive within 1 to 2 hours. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Kovalev unleashes a powerful new weapon created by his men, a last resort gadget designed to destroy everything if they are trapped. Soon after, the Phoenix Team successfully surrounds Kovalev and his only remaining ally. Kovalev, defiant, declares that he will destroy everyone. At the same time, a large shockwave hits the room, knocking everyone, including Kovalev and his men, to the ground. The scene shifts 2 days earlier, with a dragonfly-like aircraft landing on Costa Verde's bleak terrain. Brandon unexpectedly exits the aircraft to assist with the task. At that point, a commander named Modus welcomes Brandon and expresses gratitude for his coming. Modus reveals that Brandon's famed sniper abilities are a valuable addition to their soldiers. As a result, two of Modus' men, including one named Nova, enthusiastically greet Brandon. As they travel to the base, Nova narrates his country's awful past. He confesses that his uncle, who is now the Prime Minister, betrayed and murdered his father, who once governed the country. His uncle collaborated with a Russian mafia lord to create superior weaponry technologies. If perfected, these weapons could allow for invasions of other nations. When Brandon arrives at the base, he reunites with his old friend Zero, the CIA's director. Brandon, Zero explains, has been called in to assist in the capture of Kovalev, the Russian mafia lord who has long supplied illegal weaponry to America's enemies. However, Kovalev's power has expanded as a result of his collaboration with the Prime Minister. This expansion of his power makes him an even more formidable threat. Zero then introduces Brandon to the men on the base. They will form a single team to defeat Kovalev. Soon after, Modus introduces a young man named Zondi, a talented but inexperienced shooter who has yet to kill anyone. Following the introductions, the team begins training as if they are already inside the mob boss's lair. Zondi improves his shooting talents with Brandon's help. After the training session, Zondi asks Brandon what the most difficult aspect of being a sniper is. Brandon responds that taking a life for the first time is the greatest challenge since it forces one to confront the enormity of eliminating someone's life. The two then discuss the layout of the room they will be attacking. Modus and his deputy discuss the objective, assigning precise tasks to each soldier. Modus proudly named their unit Phoenix. A few hours later, the soldiers assemble to unwind and eat dinner. One of them asks Modus who the first person he recruited was. Modus admits that it was his deputy, Angel. He goes on to describe Angel's extraordinary bravery in a confrontation with terrorists. Despite being outnumbered and stabbed 12 times, Angel fought back with her bare hands and eventually defeated her attackers. When the troops hear this, they anxiously urge Angel to show them the battle wounds, which she humbly obliges. After lunch, Brandon approaches two soldiers who usually appear together and asks about their marital status. They explain that they are siblings, not a couple. When Brandon asks if they use axes in a fight, they affirm it. They are known as the twin axes because they always utilize their trusty axes as a last choice weapon. The next day, Zero inquires as to what Angel is working on. Angel then discloses that she is drawing a sketch for her daughter who she hasn't seen in a long time. Later, Modus gathers all of the troops to give a motivational speech. He underlines that their major goal is to apprehend Kovalev alive so that he can face justice in an international court and expose the Prime Minister's crimes. However, if Kovalev refuses, they have the authority to eliminate him. One evening, Modus inquired about Zondi's improvement. Given his lack of experience, he inquired if Zondi was ready to compete with Brandon as a sniper. Brandon replied that he would put Zondi to the test that evening. Brandon threatened to remove Zondi from the future expedition if he failed. Later that night, Brandon led Zondi to a quiet area and told him to shoot a man smoking outside a nearby house. Zondi paused, struggling with the unexpected scenario and wondering why he would kill someone without a good reason. Despite this, Brandon emphasized that Zondi should not overthink it. Such behavior was an integral part of their profession. Zondi obeyed Brandon's order by pulling the trigger, despite his reservations. However, the gun discharged blanks. Zondi was perplexed and apprehensive about Brandon's actual intentions. Brandon then clarified that the job was a mental test for Zondi. If Zondi had not pressed the trigger, he would have failed the test and faced expulsion from the mission. Fortunately, despite his doubts, Zondi declined. Brandon explained how he had previously failed a comparable test, which resulted in an additional 2 years of military training. The next day, the entire Phoenix squad prepared for their mission. Soon after, they climbed into their vehicle and engaged in action, as shown in the film's opening scenes. The scene then returns to the present, when Kovalev is poised to detonate his advanced weapon. Unexpectedly, everyone in the room survives the explosion, including Kovalev. Suddenly, Zero appears and holds Kovalev at gunpoint. Soon after, Brandon and the rest of the Phoenix team assemble. They ask Modus for an explanation of the recent explosion. Modus informs them that Kovalev has launched a sonic wave from his weapon, but everyone is safe. Modus then instructs them to retrieve server data from the advanced weapon, which is still in development. However, Kovalev warns that they are all in severe danger since the Prime Minister's militant forces are about to arrive, and the sonic wave will shortly cause a cataclysmic reaction. True to his word, Modus and the rest of the Phoenix team, including Kovalev, collapsed moments after. People immediately interrogate Kovalev's weapons designer about how to prevent the impending calamity, but he acknowledges that there is nothing they can do. Shortly, everyone exposed to the wave dies. Only a few Phoenix members survive. Zero moves fast, urging them to flee before the Prime Minister's militants arrive. However, Angel refuses to depart without their dead colleagues, insisting on a proper burial. Zero and Angel have a heated argument until Nova intervenes and suggests that Brandon make the ultimate decision. After some thought, Brandon explained that they needed to get the server data from the sophisticated weapon. If they failed to do so, the Prime Minister would proceed with the weapon's development, perhaps annihilating a city or maybe a country in 3 minutes. As a result, Brandon directed Zero and Nova to the lab while telling the other 3 to transfer their dead comrade's body to the tunnel. Inside the lab, Nova explained that the weapon was 70% complete and that the previous explosion was only a small-scale test. Several countries, including North Korea, had previously sourced raw ingredients for the bomb. Zero then asked if they could carry the entire server, to which Nova replied that it would be difficult without many vehicles. Finally, Brandon decided to upload all of the server data to a satellite, allowing the United Nations to access it. At that point, dismantling the facility would make it difficult to anticipate whether another group would build it. Shortly, the entire crew gathered, and Brandon explained his proposal to upload server data to a satellite. Angel voiced concern, citing the lengthy process and the impending arrival of the Prime Minister's militant force. Despite this, Brandon insisted that it was a risk they needed to take. Brandon gave them assignments after they agreed. Nova would manage server data uploads, while the others would set up ammunition traps and strategic positions. Nova eventually sought to contact trusted allies by satellite, hoping they could help, but he remained skeptical. 30 minutes later, the server's data upload had only reached 50%. Brandon then handed Nova his cell phone, explaining that the first call would detonate a device in the corridor and the second to a bomb in the lab room. Shortly after, each team member took their assigned spots. Hera, a member who was still hurting from her brother's death, determined to battle with all her might in pursuit of vengeance. Moments afterwards, the Prime Minister's militant soldiers appeared. As 2 vehicles broke through the barrier, Brandon's forces rallied, successfully neutralizing dozens of enemy soldiers.
Make it! Take cover!
At one point, Hera ran out of ammunition and received an order to retreat within the base. Hera then became trapped by a soldier and fell into the water. Other soldiers surrounded Hera, but she cleverly claimed that they were hunting the wrong woman. In a desperate move, Hera wielded her favorite axe weapon and defeated the hostile forces. Meanwhile, Zondi, Angel, and Zero faced a siege and ran out of ammunition. Brandon dropped from the rooftop just in time, instructing them to return to base while he held off the assault. In a second confrontation, Angel confronted an enemy soldier, engaging in a furious duel that resulted in the lady's death. Brandon and Zero eventually crossed paths. Zero sent Brandon to the kitchen as he entered the office to engage a group of hostile soldiers. Despite this, Brandon encountered his share of opposing soldiers. 7 hostile soldiers, however, advanced on Nova. Nova, feeling overwhelmed, made a desperate call, detonating the bombs hidden in the hallway. Soon after, he told the squad that the upload was complete and advised them to escape immediately and reassemble at the appointed rendezvous spot. The scene then turned to Hera, who found herself encircled before the lights went out. As Hera activated her flashlight, numerous soldiers immediately surrounded and attacked her. Hera died tragically. Shortly, Brandon encouraged the troops to continue towards the rendezvous place. Gunfire staggered Brandon as he fled. Zero raced to his side, telling him that everything was well. Someone fired multiple shots at Nova in another location, but Zondi and Angel swiftly eliminated the attacking soldiers. Soon, all of Brandon's troops had congregated at the rendezvous point. Nova then handed Brandon his phone and instructed him to make the second call, which would detonate the bombs in the lab. Sadly, Nova died from his injuries before Brandon could make the call. In the end, Brandon directed his troops to prepare for the blast. Shortly, dozens of hostile forces closed in. Brandon then directed the surviving troops to retreat to the tunnel, determined to repel the enemy warriors. However, Zero refused to leave his side, telling him that it was he who had persuaded Brandon to come, and Zero resolved to stay with him. Finally, Brandon told Angel and Zondi to go, emphasizing the urgency of getting the server data to the United Nations. Brandon and Zero swiftly advanced into the open field, eliminating enemy soldiers one by one until their ammunition ran out and they found themselves under siege. A group of reinforcements unexpectedly eliminated the hostile forces. It turns out that Nova had already contacted these reinforcements. They hurried to check on Nova and discovered that he was still alive. In the aftermath, Brandon and Zero planned to return to America. Zondi and Angel then expressed their appreciation for their help. Thanks for watching. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe for more of these recaps. Until next time, have a nice day.